The sun was setting over the dusty town of Redemption, casting long shadows across the main street. Sheriff Brody was a man of routine, and his evening stroll was one of those habits. But tonight, instead of enjoying the peaceful quiet, he found himself staring at a wall. And that's because something had been scrunched up and stuffed into the hollow of the old jail cell door. As he brushed away the dust, a piece of paper emerged, its edges softened from years of moisture and neglect. It was an outlaw's final letter. The sheriff knew who it was from without even reading the faded ink. It was from Dalton Rourke, one of the most notorious outlaws of their time, whose gang had terrorized the western states. Dalton, with his piercing blue eyes and a quick draw that made him deadly in a gunfight, had led the Rourke gang in robbing 3 stagecoaches and 2 trains in the last month, leaving behind a hefty sack of gold. But it wasn't just his skills that made Dalton feared. It was also his heartlessness. In their last heist, Dalton had shot a bystander, a young mother just trying to sell some apples to the stagecoach passengers. When the townspeople had finally cornered him in the old jail cell, Dalton had met their bullets with gunfire, forcing them to tear down the cell doors to get him. He'd taken his own life before they breached the cell. And now, here was his letter, probably addressed to his lawyer in the big city, telling him where the loot was hidden so that if Dalton kicked the bucket, the law couldn't get their hands on it. It was standard outlaw stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. So far, it wasn't exactly what you'd call a shocking revelation. But then the sheriff felt something hard in his hand. It was a key, and hanging from it was a small, intricately carved wooden box. It was pretty clear what this meant. Dalton hadn't just left behind his worldly possessions and secrets in this jail cell. He'd taken them with him. Why would he leave a key here? What was he trying to hide? And more importantly, why did he want the sheriff to find this box? Was it a trap? Was there something dangerous inside? Curiosity got the better of him. This was just another mystery in a long list of Dalton's strange behavior. Like, why did he let the boy go? That was the question that had been eating at the sheriff ever since the gang had laid siege to the town. Dalton had no qualms about killing people, but when they reached the jail, he'd stopped. Turning instead to the one guard they'd taken hostage, a young, lanky deputy who'd only been filling in for his sick brother. Dalton had looked at him, not unkindly. "Tell your people to stand down. Tell them it's over," he'd said. And then when the others had left, he'd asked for the deputy's name. "Tell them I let you go because your name is Thomas." "It's my brother's name," Dalton had said. And then he turned back to the door as if lost in thought. He'd have been a good man, strong and true, Dalton had muttered, and then he'd opened the door and walked out. It had made no sense at the time. Why would Dalton let the boy go? But now, holding the key in his hand, the answer to that question hit him like a runaway train. That wasn't just Dalton's way of showing mercy. It was his way of marking territory. He'd let the boy go because he was Thomas's brother. Carlton had wanted the sheriff to know that he'd come alone. It took the sheriff only a few moments to find the lockbox Dalton had mentioned in the letter. It was buried under years of grime and neglect in the corner of the cell. As he pried it open, he saw what Dalton had taken with him, a small stack of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. They were love letters. Dalton had loved someone named Mary. She'd loved him back, though her family didn't approve. Her father had written to her, warning her to stay away from the outlaw. But Dalton's replies showed how deep his feelings were. He spoke of wanting to settle down, of wanting a life with her beyond the dusty roads and the thrill of the chase. He wanted to be with her, not just because he loved her, but because he was tired of being alone. As the sheriff read the letters, he felt a pang of sadness. Dalton, the ruthless killer, didn't want to die. He'd been scared of dying, scared enough to beg for his life as the law closed in on him. And he, been scared enough to want to be with someone other than his gang of rowdy men. Someone like Mary. The sun had set completely now, and the jail cell was plunged into darkness. The sheriff could still feel the weight of Dalton's gaze upon him, even in death. Maybe that was what Dalton had wanted him to find. Not the gold, but the letters. Maybe he wanted the sheriff to know that he was more than just an outlaw. That he was a man who loved and lost and was now paying the ultimate price for living a life on the run. Or maybe, just maybe, Dalton was having the last laugh, even from beyond the grave.